Some of the president's top advisors, to put it mildly, are more cautious with their words. Elaine, after news broke of the London attacks, Defense Secretary James Mattis, responding to reporters' questions, said, "I like learning about something before I talk."
Interesting. Well, Major, the president has been using his personal Twitter account for years, long before he entered office. Are these tweets any different than official White House statements?
No, they really aren't. And the White House, in addition to dealing with what the president said, what he meant, the reaction in London, the reaction in the legal community to all of these tweets about the travel ban, also got itself in a completely conflicted public argument about what the public and journalists should do or think about the president's tweets. Over the weekend and again this morning, top White House officials were saying the media is obsessed with the president's Twitter habits. And then yet at today's briefing, Deputy Press Secretary Sarah Huckabee Sanders said they're a very important communications tool for the President of the United States, and they should be treated as such. So either the news media covering the White House is obsessed with this, or it's something that's vital to the president's ability to communicate directly to the American public. I know what the president thinks about it. He thinks it's a direct way to break through what he regards as the media clutter, the media filter, and express exactly what he's feeling the moment he is feeling that particular thought or that particular emotion. We talked in that piece just a moment ago, Elaine, to a gentleman, H.W. Brands, a professor at the University of Texas. He said most presidents wrap themselves in the institutional garb of the presidency and take on an affectation of rhetorical reserve, meaning they don't put their emotions or their instantaneous thoughts immediately out there for the American public and the world to react to and to consider. That's part of the institutional reserve kind of built in to the White House itself. H.W. Brands, as professor at the University of Texas, told me President Trump is absolutely and positively unique in that he wears his emotions on his sleeve, he wears his thoughts on his sleeve, and they go directly from that emotive core straight to Twitter. And then the rest of us deal with the after effect.
Well, Major, given what you just laid out there, all of that context, is there an effort within the White House to try to rein in the president's Twitter habit?
Sarah Huckabee Sanders was asked almost exactly that question at today's briefing. One addendum was placed in that question. Is there any legal review? Are there any lawyers involved in filtering or at least checking from a legal perspective any of the presidential tweets before they're released? Sarah Huckabee Sanders said in all candor, "I'm not aware of it, and I don't think so." And there's no evidence publicly, Elaine, to suggest any formal process, legal or otherwise, stands between the president, his Twitter account, and the send button.
What about privately, Major? Is there a sense among some administration officials that the president's recent tweets are taking the White House off message?
There's no recent sense of that, Elaine. It's a continuous sense. It is an ongoing sense. It predates this administration. I know senior people who worked in the Trump campaign who had a standing order to their junior staff. Don't tell me about candidate Trump's tweets. I'm too busy. I don't have time to deal with that. We'll deal with that when we have to, but don't come rushing in here telling me what candidate Trump just tweeted. I'm not sure if there's that elaborate and that formal a process of I don't want to hear about it within the White House, but I can tell you, many of the senior people within the West Wing have no idea what's coming from the president's Twitter account, deal with it as they are allowed to, deal with it as they can, and most often fall back on the tweet speaks for itself, or that's not what the president meant, here's what the president meant, or they just leave it alone. And in the case of the travel ban, not only did the president say things that someone who supports the travel ban said could be legally hazardous, as the Supreme Court will eventually deal with either, well, it will only deal with the second travel ban, not the first one. The president also implied on his Twitter account that he would like an expedited Supreme Court review so he can put together a tougher third variation of a travel ban. And Sarah Huckabee Sanders, during the briefing and a question I posed to her, said that may be part of the process going forward. So there are times when, confusing as the tweets may be, there are nuggets of news interlaced within them. And that was real news. A third travel ban might be in our future. How it would be written, whether it would be able to withstand legal scrutiny, nobody knows. But that it's a potential reality is real news, and that was embedded in one of these many tweets from the president.
It'll be fascinating to see if that comes to fruition. Finally, Major, before I let you go, Veterans Affairs Secretary David Shulkin announced a new electronic health record system Monday. How significant is that?
Could be very significant. It's an important announcement in of itself, in that for the very first time, after much prodding and many blue ribbon commissions, the Veterans Administration and the Department of Defense will link up their electronic medical record systems so there will be one, at least in theory, holistic electronic reservoir for everything compiled about a service member's health from the moment they enlist until they die. What we have now is a system of health records maintained by the Department of Defense while you're on active duty, and then that system does not hand off seamlessly to the Veterans Administration. The Veterans Administration then begins compiling medical records from your time that you exited active duty service. So they are not necessarily systems that compete with one another, but they're not linked, and they are not in any way, shape, or form interoperable. That's the IT terminology. And so what the Veterans Administration Secretary announced is an intention to bring these systems together in totality with the same Department of Defense vendor. No competitive bidding, getting the Veterans Administration out of the software development business. The VA has been doing its own software development for its own medical records for many, many, many years. All that is going to be scrapped. This is a 3 to 6 month process, David Shulkin told us, meaning 3 to 6 months to try to integrate these systems. There will be some questions from Congress about why this is not going to be bid out. The VA Secretary's answer to us was that would take too much time and waste money. And if you're going to place this decision within a larger context for this administration, it is this, that this White House and this administration value speed and innovation, or what it perceives to be innovation, over traditional government processes. That may be delightful news to Trump supporters. It may even be encouraging news to people who didn't support Donald Trump during the campaign, who are hopeful that a better system integrating Department of Defense and Veterans Administration health records might bring them better service. That's certainly the goal. That this decision has been made is very significant, and if it works, it could be among the most significant innovations brought to Veterans Administration health delivery systems in quite some time.
All right, we'll continue to watch it. Major Garrett at the White House. Major, thanks.
Sure.